This video presents aspects of a program where teachers work to create a learner-centered classroom using strategies that were appropriate for the age and proficiency levels of the learners. Facilitating a learner-centered classroom is one of the 6 principles of effective teaching and learning endorsed by StarTalk. The learner-centered classroom allows for a gradual release of teacher control as the student becomes responsible for his or her own learning. The Huayan StarTalk program in Montgomery County, Maryland, selected Water, Water Everywhere as their theme. Teachers in the program clearly understand the importance of selecting a theme that is both interesting and cognitively engaging for their students.
We always try our best to make the classroom have fun and kids love it. If they are interested in the contents and activity, they learn naturally. When we come up the theme, you need to think about the thing is related to the kids, that's related to the real world. Then they think, oh, we can learn this and then we can use it in the future. So I suggest the thing is very important when you decide to make a program. This is to think thoroughly and think about all the little topic and each day's lesson plan, and then try to create meaningful activities for them.
What would you expect to observe in a learner-centered classroom? The StarTalk at a Glance on facilitating a learner-centered classroom shares several aspects of the definition of learner-centered. This video will focus on key elements that can easily be addressed in StarTalk summer programs. In the learner-centered classroom, the student engages in cognitively demanding real-world tasks. The tasks are of interest to learners and allow learners to acquire new information about themselves, their communities, and the world. The learner is clearly aware of the learning targets for the lesson. The teacher models what a successful performance looks like, and learners work collaboratively and then individually to demonstrate how well they meet those learning targets. Learners collaborate while using language to accomplish meaningful tasks. They engage frequently in pair and group work, allowing for student-to-student interaction as they work toward specific learning targets. Learners seek feedback from others, and StarTalk students may select and post evidence of their learning to LinguaFolio. Veteran teacher Ita Liu describes how she thinks through her lessons to ensure that the focus is on the learner.
I think it's very, very important for teacher to think about the whole context of your lesson. When you listen planning, you have to think about what are you going to think, what is student going to feel. And before I have my lesson, it's like a film. The whole lesson plan, it's like film in my mind. When I'm on the bed, so the lesson is going on in my mind. When I'm on the car, the lesson is going on, and I say, this part is not right. So I think maybe the student will say, oh, we don't understand the way we cannot do this. So I'm going to put a little bit more detail. So I think that's how I feel like I can be understood by students. And every time I win their student, what are we going to learn today? They're eager. They're just so eager to learn.
The learning cycle begins as teachers provide rich input from a real-life context. They explain using visuals, gestures, and demonstrations, and check often to see that the learner understands the message. In the I do phase of the lesson, the teacher models what he or she expects the learner to do. A teacher may act out what the student needs to do to complete an activity, or may demonstrate a conversation that students will have by role-playing that conversation with a student. Learners move gradually from input to output as the teacher engages them in activities where they use language in meaningful ways. The teacher becomes the coach and is in a support role. This is also known as the we do part of the learning cycle. Learners engage in pair and small group activities, allowing them to practice and recycle new learning while engaging in different activities with different partners. It is important to remain in the we-do cycle until the teacher has evidence that the majority of learners are prepared to accomplish tasks independently. In the final stage of the learning cycle, students apply what they have learned, and the teacher is primarily available to monitor and provide feedback. The you-do phase of the cycle allows learners to work independently to demonstrate the progress that they are making toward meeting learning goals. The STAR Talk at a Glance on Facilitating a Learner-Centered Classroom shows how responsibility for learning shifts from the teacher to the student. Veteran teacher Sandra Tung shares her thinking about the lesson planning process.
When I start to do my lesson plan, I'm thinking how these vocabulary words related to the students, why they need to learn these vocabulary words. So we need to make it meaningful for them. They don't just learn the vocabulary words. They need to use the vocabulary words in sentences, in a structure. So they can say, 我喜欢海龟，我不喜欢海马, which means I like sea turtles, I don't like something else. So my goal for the lesson plan is they use the vocabulary words in the real situation. And I try to use as many activities as I can so they can practice. We use the comprehensive input so they understand through the permitting boards, pictures, and their action, so that help them to memorize those words.
Let's look at some of the activities used by Sandra Tung and Wei-Tao Liu in their classrooms. Here, learners engage in a playful activity as they use language to direct the actions of their classmates. Learners have a clear reason for speaking and for listening. Wei-Tao describes the rationale for a lineup activity that allows students to ask and answer questions while receiving feedback on their performance.
So in my science class, I have to think about how to make everyone talk, like a bicycle chain, like people face each other and move on. I have to let students talk themselves too. You need to hear students' voice, right? You need to how they react.
After the bicycle chain activity, Sandra models how students will pair to discuss the animals they like and dislike. The worksheet has been carefully designed to add an element of accountability to the task by requiring the students to replace a check mark next to the animals their partners like. When given the responsibility for leadership in the classroom, learners will be more motivated to use the new language, as shown in this classroom example. As students lead the class in a chant, the teacher becomes a facilitator of learning. Sandra describes her reasons for using this type of activity.
Animals kind of not really integrate with Chinese culture. So I use the bamboo claps. So I make that chant like 海龟海龟住哪里? 海龟海龟住海里. So use that bamboo clips because in Chinese culture, many people use that to tell a story to the audience. So this is one of the Chinese cultural components.
After Wei-Tao has demonstrated a science concept, the students are working in groups as they process their understanding of the concept in the we-do phase of the lesson. Wei-Tao is facilitating and notices that the group is struggling.
不喜欢吗?
She makes the instructional decision to provide additional support and returns to the group to repeat a part of the demonstration.
来，你再问他河水喜欢游吗？
河水买水喜欢游吗？
She guides their work by providing encouragement and feedback. This allows the group to continue with the task with a better understanding of the concept. Teachers often report that they feel that they are working harder than their students. The learner-centered classroom creates a climate for shared responsibility for learning. Daily lessons are structured with a clear expectation that learners will be engaged by making, doing, saying, or writing something that deepens their learning. The teacher structures lessons so that time exists to monitor learning while providing the feedback needed to improve the learner's performance. Who is working harder in your classroom? How could you apply what you have learned in this video to create a learning environment that is learner-centered?